Thanks, Sam. I'm one of these people who likes to walk around, but I've told I have to stand by this microphone, otherwise you won't be able to hear me. So I will try and stay still. So I guess I'm here to talk about a piece of work that we did, probably started actually just over a year ago with Sam, and the kind of journey we went on over the kind of 3 or 4 months that we were doing that piece of work. I thought I'd start off with a little bit about us. So I guess hopefully most of you in the room will know Morrisons. Hopefully some of you will shop with us. We are the UK's 5th largest food retailer, operating across 499 supermarkets, so big stores, 18 manufacturing sites. We don't really talk about this enough, but actually we are the UK's 2nd largest food manufacturer, as well as being the 5th largest food retailer. We have 8 logistics sites. As of kind of back end of last year, 1,000 convenience stores when we bought the McColl's business into Morrisons. And we operate out of one single head office in Bradford. Just over 105,000 colleagues across all of those business areas, so kind of fairly chunky in terms of numbers. So that's kind of us. In terms of me, I've worked scarily at Morrisons for 24 years. I'm excited to get to next year when we get like a hamper and some stuff. So hopefully I don't get sacked before then. But really kind of seen the organisation kind of grow and change. I am an HR generalist in background. I happen to have a kind of preference towards people systems, and therefore I kind of work in our people systems team. I guess for context, our people systems team does sit in the people function, so we work very closely with our kind of technology function, but we do actually have a team of kind of 10, 15 people sat within the people function, the HR function, who are dedicated to all of our kind of suite of people systems. So we very much, whilst we have a system bias, we are very much on the people side of the business rather than tech, which I think is helpful. And we work very closely with tech, kind of on across all our systems. Excuse me whilst I get the clicker working. So we operate across a number of systems. Our core HR system is Oracle. So that's kind of the big behemoth of Oracle HCM payroll. We use Google as our kind of company email platform, and Google is the kind of system that we use to access all our other kind of tertiary systems. So we use Calidus for our learning and development. We use workforce software for some of our time and attendance in manufacturing logistics, and then Zebra Reflexis for our time and attendance in retail. So we're dealing with quite a lot of systems. Wanted to talk specifically today about our recruitment system, obviously Eploy, which we interface out to NSL. So this was just to give a kind of concept of kind of the landscape that we are in. So it's been a bit sensitive. So what was the challenge that we had? So historically, our recruitment system had been owned by the resourcing team. That's no offence to the resourcing team. They're very good at resourcing, and yes, before losing our resourcing team, so she only joined last year. But our resourcing team are very good at resourcing. What they're haven't necessarily been good at is managing a system, and therefore the system hadn't been managed with an end-to-end kind of mindset. We weren't thinking necessarily about we do something in Recruit. This creates us an impact downstream or upstream in our core HR system. There was minimal governance around change control, so we were making changes on top of changes on top of changes, and actually we hadn't really necessarily understood the impact of doing those things. When I say we, I definitely don't mean me or Lou. And so when we kind of inherited ownership of the recruitment system Eploy last year, we didn't really understand the system particularly well. We'd lost a lot of that experience, I guess, within the recruitment team, where we'd had a number of people who had owned the system historically. So we kind of had to really go back to the beginning in terms of understanding what the system was, what we were doing in that system, and why we'd done some of the things we'd done. So we had some challenges. The system wasn't doing really what we wanted it to do. It wasn't working as well as it could for the business, and we didn't really know kind of quite how we'd got there. So we also had some external challenges. at the same time, we had, Brexit had happened, COVID had happened, and we'd gone from this world where, like, it was... Sorry. Where it was super easy for us to recruit, to a world where it was really becoming quite challenging. And I think around about the time that kind of Lou joined the team in kind of summer of last year, we had a lot of pressure around, we are just not getting the volume through our recruitment system, we're just not getting the number of applicants, particularly not so much in stores, but particularly in our manufacturing and logistics sites, where we had arguably kind of more complex and varied roles, and where they were sort of situated in markets where recruitment was just more challenging. So I guess we had, on one hand, the system isn't doing everything we want it to do. Actually, from a candidate experience, maybe that journey isn't as slick as we'd like, and we all know, if there's any friction in that recruitment process, candidates may well just give up and go and apply somewhere else where it's kind of less friction. So you kind of had all that stuff going on, and then the external piece as well. And we were kind of having these conversations, I guess, in probably July last year, and really getting ourselves into a space where we kind of realised we have to do something about this system. And we also didn't really have any time. So I went back and checked and found the very first meeting that I had with Samantha, and it was on the 28th of June. In fact, what's the date today? It's basically pretty much a year to go today. There we go. So a year ago today, we sat down and had that first meeting. And I guess we talked to Sam about, what are we going to want to do to the system in terms of making some of the changes we thought we wanted to make. And kind of said, look, it needs to really be done by the end of September, because from the beginning of October we start to recruit for our peak Christmas period, where we'd be taking on kind of 10,000-ish temps across the organisation. So we kind of had that hard deadline of this needs to be done by Christmas, or way before Christmas actually. And I did checks, less than 100 days between the 28th of June and the 3rd of October. So we had less than 100 days. And I think, Sam probably said, this will normally be about a 6-month project, and I think we were trying to do it basically in the best part of 3 months. Bearing in mind we were coming from a position of we didn't really know what we'd done to the system kind of before that point. So we were kind of up against it in terms of time. And I guess we had 2 options. I'm now being really cautious with my clicker. There we go. We either completely re-implemented the system and started from scratch, and we very kind of quickly decided that was not an option for us because of some technical challenges. It just wasn't going to happen, and therefore we needed to rebuild the system really whilst we were still using it. I internally describe this as being a bit like open heart surgery, because we were kind of layering a lot of change into the system, kind of whilst we really were still kind of working with the system. So we had a lot of unpicking to do and a lot of learning to do around how the system worked and how we wanted it to work. So we went for that rebuild option. And I guess in terms of what we had to do, I think when we first sat down with Sam, we kind of didn't know. We sort of said, look, these are the points where we think we've got friction. These are the points where we think we've got challenges. The website's a bit rubbish. We're asking people a whole load of questions that we don't really want to be asking them at the application stage, that really we want to be asking them post-offer. So how can we take the number of questions down in that recruitment flow? How can we be sure that we're actually asking the right candidates the right questions? Because we couldn't. And how can we really kind of speed up that process, particularly of application, because application was where the real friction was. And so we did a number of things. We rebuilt our application websites. We kind of went back to the beginning and said, well, how can we make this website easier to use? How can we reduce some of the clicks within the Eploy part of that website? We do still have a kind of a front-end website in the front of Eploy, which I personally hate. There's nobody from our provider in the room, is there? No, I don't think so. I'm sorry, I hate your website. But from the Eploy bit, we definitely could kind of make the application process easier. We rebuilt all of our application flows, all of our application forms. We've got over 50. We've across, I think you've got the picture over there. I actually couldn't fit the whole of our forms flow on the page, but, we want to ask in a particular manufacturing site for a particular job whether somebody can do a particular thing. So there was a lot of detail that we needed to really ask across that, across those flows. So that in itself was really quite a complex piece of work just to get to, well, these are all the questions we want to ask and to who. We simplified, and I didn't put on this slide, we simplified the process for raising a vacancy. So this was one of those examples where over time we'd gone, we now need to ask a hiring manager this question, and we'd like to get that information from a hiring manager and this information. And what we'd done over time is we just added and added and added and added and added. So you ended up with this really long form for raising a vacancy. And I was like, we kind of just need to know what the job is and when we want somebody to start, really. Like, we don't need to know load more information than that. So we really pared back that process to make it easier to raise a vacancy. As I say, we turned on forms flow. So forms flow was a big deal for us because it meant that we knew that we were asking the right candidates the right questions. We turned on Indeed direct apply, so it was one of the first things that we were asked to do, actually. How do we get Indeed direct apply turned on to really kind of increase that volume? And so that was one of our key objectives as part of the work we were doing. And I'll talk in a little bit about how that was a good thing and a less good thing in the end for us. But we wanted to turn that on. We deployed the onboarding module, so to solve that issue where we were collecting candidate information at the application stage that we didn't really want, we turned on the onboarding module to say, hey, look, actually, we only want to get these bits of information from you once you've actually been offered a role. I wouldn't say we've used the onboarding module to its fullest potential because we do quite a lot of onboarding with an Oracle HCM, but for us, we were gathering that data that we kind of needed and didn't have in a way that made the recruitment process easier. And we did a huge data cleanse. So actually we had loads of data in the system that we just didn't need, vacancies we didn't need, historic stuff that kind of hadn't been closed, shut down. It was just messy. I got quite excited in the session next door about the kind of auto-delete stuff. My colleague who sits next to me will be excited that there's kind of some verification on that because there's been a couple of times we've deleted some stuff by accident. So yeah, we've done that data. I don't think deleting 100 vacancies by accident is a bad thing. We deleted 40,000. I'm thinking my hit rate was pretty good. So yeah, that big data cleanse as well. Come on, slide. So what was the result? So we turned on time. Our updated recruitment processes, our updated website and order forms flow. We've had over 1 million applications since go live. So I think the biggest stat for me was we went from circa 7,000 applications a week to on average now 30,000. I think at the time it was kind of slightly over 30,000, but that was a kind of significant increase for us in applications. That was really being driven through Indeed. I think I'll talk about Indeed at this point. That created us some challenges because it gave us the volume, but it gave us the volume everywhere. And one of the things we've been talking to Indeed and Eploy about is how can we move toward where we can be slightly more controlled around what we send to Indeed as a direct apply versus not. And I think we've had some green shoots in our conversations with Indeed, really, actually, around how we might be able to change that. So I see a few people nodding. So hopefully, if we can get that piece of work away, it will help more people than just us. So it was great in manufacturing logistics. We were getting loads of applications through where we didn't have applications before, but in retail, we were having way too many in some cases. And I think, and it's a learning that I'll come to at the end, we haven't really necessarily geared up our users for what they had to do differently when Indeed was turned on. So, they were leaving vacancies open for too long. In some areas, they were getting like 700 applications a week for a vacancy where they needed 2 or 3 people, just way too much. And I guess that was one of my learnings, that it's hard to kind of replicate in a test environment what real people are going to do in the real world. So I think if I was doing that again, we'd have probably been kind of slightly more cautious around how we'd have turned Indeed on. The end result, though, was that in manufacturing logistics, where we'd been spending a lot of money on external attraction and really having to pay for a lot of that recruitment, that kind of went away overnight in a lot of cases, and really meant that we could bring on that kind of temp population in logistics, particularly, and manufacturing, particularly in the run-up to the Christmas period. So we really removed that spend. And at the last check, when I wrote these slides a couple of weeks ago, we'd had 22,000 onboarding forms completed. So we're absolutely kind of using that onboarding process well and in anger to kind of get those candidates into the organisation. In the learnings, I think I always underestimate how rubbish some of our users can be. And where you send them out a process which you think is very clear, they still manage to kind of get it wrong. So we did have some challenges when we went live around onboarding, particularly where people were trying to use the process in the way that it kind of used to work. And therefore we had a lot of failures on the Oracle HCM side because people just didn't have everything they should have had to go through that export. I'm also very excited about the compliance stuff that's coming, because being able to have that lock for us in terms of you can't get out of this system before you've done these things is going to make a massive difference. So we did, about 4 weeks into our go live, we did make another change. We had to be quite creative working with Sam in terms of how can we take what we've done, not lose what we've done, but make the process slightly more of an arm lock on our users to stop them moving too far in the process. We made that change, and that kind of really reduced down the number of export failures that we were seeing. But like I say, that compliance module really is going to stop that altogether, I think. As I say there, we had to rework some of those system steps to improve compliance. And I think it really exposed as well our end users' low knowledge of the system. So I think we'd implemented Eploy in kind of 2018, 2019. We hadn't really gone back to those users and validated, how the system worked today, really understood whether they understood any of the changes we'd made to that point. And therefore, I think people had found their own way to use the system. And that's why when we went, we want you to use it that way, some people were trying to still do it the way they had been. And that created some of that tension, I guess. But I think that has, well and truly settled down for us. I think we've continued to work and improve the system, but I think we internally would say that what we did was a success. And like I say, we delivered Christmas, we delivered all those temporary workers that we wanted. I'm not sure I'd have done anything differently again, in a sense of other than have more time. I think if we'd have had more time, we'd have probably spent more time understanding what we'd done to the system in the first place. But, I think if we're doing it again now, we kind of know most of that stuff. So I think we'd be in a better position. So our journey continues. We continue to learn more about the system and get the most out of it. I would say we've had great support from Sam's team on the project, but then ongoing support from the success team. I think I would say that my experience of support from Eploy is far better than support from some of our other providers. So that's kind of made that easy, really. There's growing business confidence in the solutions. There's a lot less noise out there in the business around, we need a different recruitment system, or we need to change how that system's working. I think we've kind of really, really settled it down and gone through a number of other peaks of recruitment in the meantime. And we are now as a team much more self-sufficient in aspects of the system. So actually not having to kind of be on the phone to Eploy every 5 minutes saying, how do we kind of understand more. And as you've seen earlier, there's loads of stuff I think that's coming that we are excited about and would want to implement. So that was me. That was our little journey. I think Sam's going to do a few more slides, and then I think we'll do Q&A at the end. So this is your cue to start thinking about some questions. I'll hand over to Sam.
Oh, there we go. So, yeah, thanks very much for that. It has been a journey, but we got there and it was fun. We had some fun along the way, definitely. So as part of what we can do for you, there are lots of different things. We can do system reconfiguration. We've got onboarding processes that we can put into your system. You know, new candidate portals, like you were saying, you know, maybe. You know, single sign-on, exports, you know, right-to-work integrations, those sorts of things that are in the system. We've got background checking integrations. And obviously, if any of you are international, we also do international configuration. So, you know, we can do multilingual candidate portals and candidate experience for you. As part of projects, you know, even whether you're in project, out of project, we always like to talk to you, okay? Case studies, we love to do a case study, okay? Get you entered into some awards. So if this is of any interest to you guys, speak to your account manager or speak to Rachel in our marketing team. We're here for you, okay? From the success team to developers, we love to be able to help, okay? There's plenty of us around today. This is the team, okay, at our lovely office. We get there and we're there for you, okay? So have a chat with any of us.